Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another event coverage video. This time we're going over the top 8 of the Texas LCQ. So this took place over the weekend. This was another last chance qualifier to get into nationals. And it was the first tournament with the draft box legal. Now, it was probably pretty tough for a lot of these players to get the draft box. I heard personal reports of that being the case, just scarcity and hard to come by the product. So I'm sure that that didn't necessarily impact tournament too much, but I know a few players, especially in the top 8, did do their best to get their hands on some draft box stuff. It did influence the tournament a bit, and we're going to talk about it, guys. Again, this is another tournament where I don't have the deck lists or the exact top 8 in my possession, so I'm going off of what players at the tournament were able to relay to me, and I did try pretty hard to get this information, so I think it's pretty accurate. Talked to several different players that were at the tournament, so this is what I got, guys. I'm pretty sure it's accurate. We'll go through it, but before we do, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with awesome Dragon Ball Super content that I do post here. If you're looking for a Dragon Ball Super community to get in touch with, make sure to check out the Discord in the description below. Excellent, helpful group of people. If you want to get caught up on some competitive content now that we are in regional season, heading towards nationals, check out the Patreon in the description below. Really helps the channel out a lot, and you get a lot of competitive content. And finally, guys, if you want to buy any of the cards I talk about in this video or purchase any of the decks, make sure to use my link to TCG Player in the description below. Everything really helps out. Really appreciate each and every one of you guys. With that being said, we'll get into this discussion. So, Texas LCQ, top 8. Starting off, we have 3 Shenron. Shenron dominating the top 8, although the 3 different Shenron decks were 3 different variants. We'll talk about each one. So the first one, really cool, something we haven't seen top in quite some time, Shenron Veggies. And I'm not talking about blue, yellow, U6 Veggies. I'm talking about a tricolor variant. So this was abusing Assemble a Squad to get into your Saiyan Team or Kaba, a card that hasn't been super relevant as of late. But realistically, it's a powerful deck. I mean, it's a powerful rush deck. We have kind of blue, yellow, U6 being the premier aggro deck, and we'll talk about that once we get to that because that deck did top. But with this version of the deck, you have so many free energy plays. Obviously free assemble into Saiyan Team or Kaba. This was also playing the red veggies, so ideally you're going Saiyan Team or Kaba into the red Caulifla from the Tournament of Power. That gets you into your red Kales, red Kabas, things like that. There is a bit of draft box support in that deck, and I don't have the list in front of me like I said, but I'm sure that saw a lot of success from the new draft box cards, especially because a lot of them are lower rarity except for the Caulifla SR, but that can be like a 2 of at most. I think I don't really think you need more than 2 of that card. And to go along with that, you played a yellow engine consisting of 4 Cauliflas, the one that takes a life and taps an energy, so that's going to tap your opponent out for any negates they want to use. Especially crucial against yellow because it prevents their Nimbus. Nimbus is kind of like the bane of your deck's existence. Also good against red to prevent things like After Image, prevent things like Is That All You Got? So really good card. You can also play it off the Saiyan Team or Kaba, and he played a few of the Caulifla SR, Caulifla the Awakened Sister. Again, when you play it, tap energy, tap battle cards, 20k double strike, really big pressure. Super stoked to see a deck like this get in the top cut. And then the rest of the top 8, as far as Shenron was concerned, we have 1 Shenjita and 1 Shenron Ramp. So coming off of Rockford specifically, Purunga seemed to just really take the spotlight in terms of Shenron Ramp. Now, Shenjita we haven't seen in a little while. It's been kind of scarce lately. I think it's going to top here and there, but I really think against the rest of the format, the Ramp build is probably better because your worst matchup as Shenjita is Toa. And the Ramp variants can put out multiple boss monsters per turn, and they're typically going to have a better shot against Toa. And Toa is still pretty popular, as you'll see from this top cut spread. But regardless, talking about Shenron, and Shenron did dominate this event as Purunga did Rockford. So I think it's going to kind of just be hit or miss. It might be like a location, regional thing where people decide like, hey, I think Purunga's better. Hey, I think Shenron's better. I think they both really do have their merits. I got to say, though, lately, especially talking to some of my patrons that are playing Purunga Ramp, I'm really turned on to the fact that Purunga, gives you that extra boss monster spam, gives you that extra big play, because a lot of the times, like if Toa needs to, they're flexible where they can deal with the triple strike, deal with the triple attack, whatever the situation calls for. Typically it's gonna be a triple strike, and then that triple attack is gonna be kind of worthless. So putting out the extra boss monster sometimes seems like really good. But with that being said, I do think both decks definitely are very strong. Both decks have obviously topped tons of events. So whatever your poison is, whatever you're feeling for that tournament, whatever you feel like is a better leader, I think it can be worked around. So nonetheless, really cool to see these decks top. Next up, we have Clash of Fate's Son Goku going undefeated at the tournament, coming in first place. Now again, this was an LCQ. This was not like a day 2 playoff type of event. So in the one day of the tournament, the Clash of Fates Goku leader went XO. It was a red-green build, and this deck could have seen a little bit of tweaking from the draft box. One thing in particular comes to mind is like Gallic Cannon, a few other cards here and there. The Vegeta, except the leader's green, so that wouldn't even work. The Vegeta U7 Exploiting Weakness, that would be a card you could play if you played like Yamcha leader, for example. But in this leader in particular, not too much from the draft box is going to influence this, in my opinion. Now, I believe I'm going to get this player on the channel for a player interview to talk about his deck list, so hopefully that all works out. You might see that either tomorrow or Wednesday. Again, hoping that all pans out. So really cool to see this deck top. And again, like this is a format where there are really strong decks. You know, top 4 from the past few events being Toa, Janemba, U6, and Shenron. But you have a deck like Clash of Fates Goku, which I would consider to be more rogue, very close to top tier though. And you know, it's just super aggressive, super defensive, and has a crazy boss monster with Kaioken. So it goes to show that in this format, if you are really comfortable with your deck, if you really know what you're doing, you can win pretty much any matchup, I would say. So and I also got reports that Janemba got like smashed in this tournament, and Janemba can be a bit of a tougher matchup for this deck, as at least from my experience. So just with that being said, like, it's pretty interesting to see how Janemba has kind of gotten smashed, I guess. I mean, I think the influx and the increase of ramp players like Shenron, Purunga ramp players, I think has a bit to do with that. Toa probably adapting a bit to beat that matchup probably is working out well in their favor. Next up, we have one Kaba in this top 8. So the premier aggro deck of the format. Now, I was really convinced that other U6 leaders could like kind of rise up. You know, you have like U6 yellow hit, you have yellow Kefla, and you have red Kefla. Kefla being like a really sleeper pick just with that Hirudegarn effect, you know, pitch a U6 and draw 2 cards. But it seems like Kaba really is the premier one in this format, and that's probably got to do with the fact that it can pivot really well. Like, it can pivot really well from aggro to control. You know, obviously you're spamming the board with tons and tons of beaters once you get Chomp of Autos online, but you're also getting rewarded for tapping your opponent's energy both on offense and defense. I think Kaba probably has the best shot to keep a bigger hand size in the U6 deck. Maybe the other Kefla leaders, maybe they have a good shot as well. But hit, I was testing it for a while, and it really had a hard time keeping up hand size. I think this format really does reward decks with good hand size. Comfortability is a big thing, but if your deck can only, you know, average 5, 6, 7 cards in hand, you might be struggling a little bit out there. So Kaba, again, just super consistent deck, premier aggro deck of the format if that's your kind of play style. Next up, we had one Toa in this top cut. I think this deck definitely evolves a lot from the draft box. In my personal opinion, again, I don't know what the player played that got in the top 8, but in my personal opinion, the 2 cards that really are going to improve this deck a lot is the SS3 Tag Team Trunks and the Mira Assault from the Skies. So talking about the Trunks real quick, it gives Toa a lot more aggro flexibility. So just being an overall 3 crit is already pretty good, but you have the added benefit of warping a card in your hand and giving it double strike. So like a turn 1 double strike crit, you know, that's really hard for your opponent to defend, especially, you know, if they're not an ultra defensive deck. You know, like think about Shenron, like they're probably just taking that damage off the bat unless they have like, you know, 5 and drop already and have like super combos. Besides that though, like a lot of decks in the format, they're taking that double strike crit. That's really powerful. And besides that, Mira Assault from the Skies, like one of my issues with Toa and why the deck like kind of frustrates me is that when I run out of Creator Absorbs in my deck and my opponent's dealing with my Vegetas time regulators, it's hard to get your Mira loops going back in. But this Mira is such a good card for a few reasons. Like obviously it's got a really good effect. You can tap out for it and then get an energy back in your opponent's turn to use your leader's effect. You get a little bit of card draw, and it's a big 30k double strike. You can give crit, and it's not a card you mind searching off the top 5 with Toa. Like a lot of times when you see Creator Absorbed in your top 5, you don't want to take it because you want it in the deck, but this Mirror you don't mind taking. Like you can overwhelm it on its own later on, you can charge it, you can combo it to then, like, you know, summon it from the warp with the 3-drop Mirror Unit Absorber. So overall, I think Toa has evolved a lot from the draft box. Really interested to see the builds as we move forward. And then next up, we have Hirudegarn Green in this top 8. This is so cool. So this is blue-green Hirudegarn featuring the new Zamasu cards from the draft box. The main one really being the 3-drop Goku Black, which I believe does, and this is all from memory, I believe it says activate battle. You can play it for 2 energy. It's typically a 3-drop, and then when you play it that way, you can pop a 2 or less on your opponent's board, and then activate main for 3 energy. You can play a 5-drop or higher Zamasu from your hand. So the one you're typically going to be playing is Twisted Justice, a 7-drop from, I believe it's set 3, and that one KOs 2 guys when it comes into play and makes your opponent discard 2 cards. You are a blue leader, so you're not really, you know, impacted by Mercenary Tau as much as a green leader would be. So overall, this deck is super cool. Really happy to see that this innovative type of deck topped. And again, draft box innovation. It's super cool to see, you know, what we got with a new set. And lastly, guys, in this top 8, we've got the one Broly Height of Mastery. So obviously my teammate Marcus won San Diego with Broly the weekend before that. The deck is super powerful. I think one of the biggest things about the deck right now is the lack of Mutaito in the format. You know, really the main yellow deck we're seeing in the format is Kaba U6, and obviously Kaba is restricted to only playing U6s and Vegeta cards. Mutaito is obviously not one of those things. So they're playing, you know, a few copies of Champa the Trickster here and there, but the fact that Broly Height of Mastery can use its leader effect to restand the height or the victory strike because Champa doesn't lock it down for the turn, that's super powerful. So the lack of Mutaito, I think, makes Broly Height of Mastery very viable. Definitely, in my opinion, not in terms of aggro. The deck can aggro with like Source of Power and Overwhelms, but the Height of Mastery victory strike win condition is super strong right now, especially against things like Toa and Janemba. So if this deck is rising in popularity, no question in my mind why Janemba is going to be dipping in popularity. So guys, that's basically the top 8 from this event. Very cool spread of decks, a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of innovation from the draft box, and I'm sure that's going to continue as time goes on. The draft box is a seriously cool set, guys. If you're not invested in it yet, if you haven't bought in your product yet, make sure you get that. You can do that with my TCG player link in the description below, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on the format are in the comments below. Again, thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.